property market turning a corner? You might think with $22 million of property sold at a single biggest auction this winter, more than half of the 46 properties on the block at South Auckland's auction found a buyer. Some of the properties that passed in, dubbed the day, auction the day, had sold shortly after, and about 20 more were expected to sell over the next few days with kind of, behind closed doors deals. By all accounts, there was a lot of experienced people in the room. 264 registered bidders. So let's talk about this and some other things going on with our favourite property commentator, Ashley Church. Hello, my friend.
How are you, Leah? With a nice introduction.
Oh, always for you. Do you remember old Coolio's Gangster Paradise, us in the 90s? How cool would we have been?
I heard you were singing it a few minutes ago, just off air.
Sorry. Yeah, Callie and I can get a bit raucous.
I can imagine. I can only imagine.
Mid-90s, what was the fashion? Were you in your acid-wash jeans and probably long hair and some tassel jacket? Or was that me?
No, it was probably me as well. Tight acid wash jeans as it happened.
yes.
Yeah, it's a bit embarrassing to look back now, but yeah.
Funny. All right, let's talk some. Now you're thinking about it now, aren't you? You're thinking, where did those bloody jeans go? Could I get away with it? No. Ashley, what is the market turning? First question.
Look at it. Firstly, the results of that auction are fantastic. So that's great. Good on them for getting a bit of media out of it as well. But so it's an indication of a couple of things. One, that confidence might be over-egging it a little bit, but the depression around the market's certainly disappearing. So I think there's some sort of very cautious buds that indicate that the market's starting to recover, and that's being fed by a few things, primarily by the fact that I think people can finally see the end of these rising interest rates and the possibility that now they're going to come down over the next little while, and so people are sort of slowly starting to re-emerge after the storm.
I mean, if you've got 264 registered bidders, which was pretty good, and so there didn't seem a lack of buyers, do you think too that vendors' expectations are more realistic?
I think you've actually nailed it. I think that's probably the big change that's taken place over the last few months, is that for a long time people saw those values on their properties after, that sort of late 2021, early 2022 period, thought that's what their house was worth, weren't prepared to negotiate down, and it's taken a year and a half for them to get to the point where they've realised, hey, if I want to sell, I'm going to have to be realistic about what I accept, and that's making a big difference.
Yeah. Oh, that hurts too when you realise it. You picked a figure that is just not going to happen. Can I quickly ask about these auctions? I mean, I think it was Ray White, I'm not sure. They've got another one in October that's coming up. Is it quite normal to hold these kind of mega auctions?
I think it probably. I mean, I know Barfoot and Thompson, for example, do this all the time. It's part of their normal business model. So they've got an auction room specifically set up in Auckland, Shortland Street in Auckland, where they sort of pump these things out all the time. So I don't think it's particularly unusual. I think this one has been sort of pitched more as an event and good on them for doing that. But I don't think the idea of doing them in this way is necessarily unusual. What is unusual is the fact that auctions are producing a result, because auctions by nature work best in a hot market, and the reason for that is because auctions, the lifeblood of auctions is competition. If you've got more than two people in a room that both want the same property, they'll compete and they'll put their hands up. In a soft market, such as we've had over the last couple of years, auctions would be your worst nightmare, because if you only got one bidder, the whole mechanism doesn't work. So the fact that you've got that many, 264 people registered in a room, that works brilliantly, and that's why these properties are sold.
So the average property value is still down on this time last year, and I know in Auckland, because that's where our houses are, they've dropped about 2.5%. But are there some markets starting to look like they're doing well?
Yes, there are, and I mean, if you break the country down, there's some parts of the country where the markets are recovering better than others. There's been a few things that have fed into that. There was sort of some sprouts of optimism, I think, toward the end of last year, beginning of this year. And they were snuffed out by the fact that the Reserve Bank wasn't dropping rates when people thought they were going to, and there was even some expectation the Reserve Bank was using pretty strong language in February of this year that indicated they might have even put rates up further, and that pretty much killed off that initial optimism, but it's back now with a vengeance.
Nice. Can we move on to apartments, Ashley? Because
Sure.
for those that have bought an apartment over the years to live in or rent out, the latest Pain and Gain report, what a great name, from CoreLogic, shows 35% were sold for less than what they were bought for, the highest proportion since 2012. And Auckland has taken 44% of apartment sales, taken a loss. What is going on?
I saw that, and they were measuring that, I think, over 4.5 years. So they were saying that now that those properties were selling for less than they'd been purchased for 4.5 years ago, as opposed to freestanding dwellings and other sorts of property. I think where they were talking about losses being in the nature of 2.5 years. Look, I think that's probably reflective of the apartment market overall. We've had a little bit of a swathe of them over the last couple of years, so there's been a glut of them coming onto the market. It's interesting, though, because if you'd asked me that question 25 years ago when apartments were still a sort of a novelty and people just trusted them, it was more likely back then that if a property was going to suffer at the hands of the market, it was likely to be apartments first. They've kind of normalised over the last 20 years. People have just treated them now as sort of part of the whole pantheon of housing and just another option. So I suspect this is probably just a reflection of the fact that the market's been going through this weird time, and as it recovers, as it will over the next 12 to 18 months, apartments will recover along with the rest of the market.
Yeah, it's an interesting one because, a few years back, I even, we kind of looked at, let's get an apartment for an investment, thinking it might be something to do, and thankfully we didn't. But, I suppose it depends on where you buy your apartment and which block and what it looks out on. They must, like any house, it varies, doesn't it?
All of that, and if investors are getting back into the market, for example, they're going to be looking in the first instance, I would imagine, at freestanding dwellings. So your apartments to some degree will be last cab off the rank. But as I say, if you've got an apartment and you're not in the sort of urgent need to sell, hang in there because it's going to come right over the next couple of years.
Okay, Ashley, your favourite topic, your mate Adrian Orr.
My mate Adrian Orr,
Your mate. And I know we've touched on this all the time, but the Reserve Bank makes its next official cash rate decision next Wednesday, which is probably when we'll talk again. So what can we expect? Again, economists are just loving this. It's Christmas. They're recommending a cut next week and then another cut and another cut.
Yep.
And you'd agree.